Hello and welcome to Shred Show. I am your host Chris Grow, and this is the internet's most stoked surfboard show where we put passion up into the air and inhale it like surfboard resin until the stoke just saturates into our soul. Did you know that the word passion derives from a Latin word which means to suffer? And I think that's really true because what you find a lot of times is people that are really passionate about something, they suffer at the hands of what they love. But Todd Proctor is one of the few people who I've met who really seems empowered by his passion, totally free, and his excitement for surfboard shaping. I think some of his boards are some of the most intelligently designed boards I've come across. As we look at this surfboard, it looks a little bit familiar to a board that we talked about in episode 6 of Shred Show, the Channel Islands Weirdo Ripper, but this surfboard is a little bit more technical in its design, and that will make it very good for surfing a specific type of wave if you want to do a specific type of surfing. When we start talking about the Pipsqueak, I actually want to move in a little bit reverse order of what we used to do, and I want to go straight into a conversation about the concaves of the Pipsqueak. As we start up at the top, this starts out flat, moves into a single concave, and continues to go single for a very long way until it turns into a slight double concave inset within the single concave, and something really crazy happens right about here, sloping down right into a spiral V in the tail, all the way out to V in the back. Now this surfboard keeps a very consistent single concave from about where your chest is when you're paddling all the way to the beginning of the fins. Now this leads us to a very interesting discussion about rocker and concaves, because the Pipsqueak flies in the face of conventional wisdom when it comes to rocker and concaves. Normally in a surfboard that has a lot of rocker, that surfboard will have very heavy concaves in the hull of the board. Why? Because when we put a lot of rocker in a surfboard, it slows down the surfboard just by the nature of what a rocker does. Because if a surfboard has a lot of rocker, that means that the water hits the entry rocker at the front of the board, and it has to travel a really long way around the curve of the rocker and the surfboard, and that slows the surfboard down. But if we go to a board with a lot of rocker in it and give it a very heavy, deep concave, that creates a straighter path for the water to travel across the center of the surfboard. Because even though the rails will have a lot of rocker in a heavily rockered surfboard, if we give a heavy concave to that surfboard, it makes this line straighter. The Pipsqueak does not have a lot of rocker, but what it does have, as we know from already looking at this, is a very heavy single concave, given that it doesn't have a lot of rocker. Now when you take a surfboard that has a very heavy single concave, like this board does, and put that in a board with not a lot of rocker, what you get is a lot of grip to the wave and a lot of drive. And that's what helps you do really critical turns. But on small waves, if we have heavy single concave going through the entire length of the board, that will make the board stick a little bit too much to the face of a wave in flat spots. Because a single concave sticks to the wave, and if you hit a flat spot on a small wave, the board will kind of die and you won't really be able to maneuver it how you want it to. So on the Pipsqueak, what Proctor Surfboards has done is they've given us a very consistent, heavy, single concave coming all the way up to the fins in order to make the board surf predictably and to allow it to do critical turns. But then what they've done is some magic in the tail to work in small waves and get you through flat spots of thigh-high, mushy waves. If you can see in the profile of the foil of this board when I hold it like this, there is a step rail right here, and the thickness of the rail decreases rapidly from here to here. The tail gets much more thinner. Also, there's a wing in the tail of this board right here. And what that does is it decreases the area of the planing surface of the board drastically into the tail. Those two things correspond to a lot of intricate stuff going on the hull of the board right after the first two fins. If I angle this correctly, you can see channels on the bottom of this board. And you can see those right here, and you can see those right here. The hull of the board goes down right here, and it goes down right here, right on the inside edge of these two fins. What all this amounts to in the tail is it allows us to hit the tail of this board and really slide it around easily relative to the body of this board on the bottom. If you know anything about the little Rascal, which we've also done a video on, and I will link that in the info for this video, you know that that surfboard is very fast on small waves and it turns right when you want it to. The Pipsqueak is not quite as fast as the little Rascal, but it has more maneuverability and you're able to maneuver it better and surf it high performance on smaller waves. When you own a surfboard company like Todd Proctor does, you have the right to show up at your local beach with about 10 boards in your car. Because you make them, you essentially get them for free. But most of the time when Todd goes surfing, this is the only board that he brings because it fits most of the conditions that he runs into in Ventura, California. I think this board would work really well in mushy, thigh-high, 3-foot waves, and it will work really well for allowing you to bring shortboard style ripping to small, mushy, gutless waves if you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of the speed that a little Rascal by Proctor Surfboards would give you in exchange for a little bit more high performance capability, a little bit more of an ability to surf the pocket of a little wave, a little bit more of an ability to do critical turns because of the way that the heavy SingleConcave stays consistent through the board and then turns into a really intricate hull in the tail. This is essentially like a Bonzer Venturi channel with a spiral V in the end of it. It's very complex and I think it's very well designed. If you've ever surfed the Pipsqueak by Proctor or any similar boards, please tell us about your experience in the comments below. If you like the video, please click like, not the thumb, but the actual button below this video on the left. And we really look forward to seeing you next week on Shred Show.